All right, we're at $80 donated. If you aren't subscribed, subscribe now. Every subscriber equals $1 in donations. All things considered, my sophomore season was off to a really good start. We were 4-1 and our next game was against Charlotte. After losing to JMU, we almost lost our spot in the top 25. I was still struggling to find my throwing angles and reducing turnovers overall. I think Charlotte was so bad that it raised everyone's confidence. Everyone was ripping off chunk yard plays. I was making some great throws, and despite a few turnovers, we had a solid offensive performance. Again, this is against a 1-4 team, so it should be expected. I will say that the defense has really started to pick it up in the last few games, and especially TJ Quinn, our starting middle linebacker, who is currently in consideration for being an All-American as a sophomore. We had some other really good defensive players, but TJ Quinn stood out and was like the defensive version of me. Hopefully we can bring some jewelry back to Louisville during our time together. Jawar Jordan was playing really well and scored a second touchdown, giving us a 14-0 lead in the second quarter. Charlotte was showing no signs of life midway through the game, so I put the dagger in them before half, finding Chris Bell wide open for our third touchdown of the day. Jawar finished with over 100 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, and we walked out with the W. Our matchup against UCF was probably the biggest game that I've ever played in. My only issue was that coach played incredibly conservative. We barely passed, and if it was second or third and long, we'd just run it and give up on the drive. We were down 7-0 early, and with 2 minutes left in the half, we still hadn't scored. I drove us down the field, finding D. Wiggins and Marshawn Ford for a few catches. We made our way to the red zone, where we got stopped and had to settle for a field goal. It was a chip shot, to be honest, but we missed it. To start the second half, we got the ball after a fumble on UCF's side of the field. We had great positioning, but we ran the ball the first 2 plays and got no yards. And then on third down, I couldn't find a receiver and tried to pick up the first scrambling, but I got body slammed into the turf and I fumbled the ball. But when we needed it most, down 21 points, I showed up. I channeled my inner Lamar Jackson, taking a read option keeper for a nearly 80-yard touchdown to put us back within 2 scores in the third quarter. We started getting really aggressive going into the fourth quarter. We had 2 drives get down to the red zone, and coach had us go for it on each fourth down. One play was a run for Jawar Jordan that we didn't convert, and another was an incomplete pass. We had a little more than a minute left, still down by 14. Finally, Chris Bell burnt his man in press coverage off the line of scrimmage, and I found him in the end zone for the second touchdown of the game. Now, since we only had 1 timeout left, we had to rely on an onside kick recovery. Unfortunately, UCF recovered and we took our second L of the season. Disappointment, again, is the result of unmet expectations. Despite winning more games my sophomore year than I did in my entire time at Buffalo as a freshman, I was still disappointed because we had higher expectations as a team than being a barely top 25 team in a random bowl game. There is a common phrase that was especially true in this moment. When it rains, it pours. The bad vibes around the locker room infected our play. I was especially struggling. 3 of my first 5 passes were picked off in the first quarter, the last one resulting in a pick 6. I mean, I completely regressed. I was making terrible reads, and USF's defense was totally capitalizing. No dropped picks whatsoever. I was trying to run outside the pocket, but USF's D was swarming. I got hit pretty hard, and luckily I fumbled the ball out of bounds. We were hanging by a thread offensively. I feel like coach was about to bench all of us. Receivers were getting bodied off the line. Marshawn Ford couldn't get open, and Jawar Jordan was averaging about 2 yards per carry. We were boxed by a 3-4 team. I never knew where college football would take me when I was in high school, but I did not expect this. I got my scholarship pulled to go to UW. I played 3 games at Buffalo and got benched, and moved to Louisville with a ton of talent, and we were losing to James Madison and USF. The UCF loss was at least somewhat respectable and defensible, but if we want to win our conference or win a big bowl game, we would need to improve across the board. And it started to get ugly near the beginning of the fourth quarter. I made a forward throw that was called as a fumble, which was recovered, and then later I got hit on a scramble and fumbled one more time. I took a hard hit to the ribs, and then I had to sit the rest of the game, and I had to wait to get evaluated to determine how long I was going to be out. Something needed to change.